Hey Wargamers, Doug here from 2 Plus Tough, and today I have the great joy of talking about the Dystopian Wars starter set. And so, essentially, the good folks over at Warcradle Studios reached out to me and asked if I wouldn't mind talking about this. And it's a kind of game that I've never actually played. Like, I've never played, I guess the closest thing is X-Wing, but I've never played like a big ship type game. And so I was actually kind of excited to see how it worked. So in this video, what we're going to do is unbox this thing live on cam, walk you through what you actually get and how the basic functions of the game are, and talk about the overall value if you wanted to get started. An important thing to note is that Dystopian Wars is actually set in the same universe as Wild West Exodus, which is a game that I did cover the factions for, and I'll leave a link to that playlist in the description down below if you want to learn more about the setting as a whole. And this week on the channel there's going to be a few lore videos talking about the 3 existing factions for this game, in case you wanted to learn a little bit more about the cool alternate history that is the Dystopian Age. With that out of the way, let's go down to the downward cam and crack this sucker open. Boom, this is a beefy box, and I'm going to say this to all game companies who want me to cover their stuff. I'm a sucker for good packaging. You ever have those weird moments? There's a meme about this online that I've seen where it's just like, you know you're an adult when you look at this at a box and you're like, man, that's a good box. I want to keep that box. Okay, so let me just, for the sake of space, just stack that in top, and we'll spin this around. So essentially, Dystopian Wars Hunt for the Prometheus. This is an introduction to the game and the setting. Here we have our little booklet, and it's a few things here. Let me just crack this open. So in this little guy, you have a few things. One is the actual rule book for the game. This is everything you need to know about playing in the Dystopian Age. Also, if you are a lore buff like me, Warcradle puts all the lore for their games in the back of their book, like literally for every faction. So this is everything you need to know about the full game rules. Now, to get you started, however, let me put that off to the side. They have this little like quick start guide, which basically just says, here's how you're going to build these ships, here's the rules for them, and just kind of gives you a quick idea of like some of the keywords that are specific to these ships, right? You don't have to worry about memorizing the bulk of everything. This is like mission focused, right? We're just going to stay on topic to this box. Beyond that, there is the Hunt for the Prometheus campaign, of which there is a wonderful little story to kind of set up the hunt for the Prometheus class ship, and a few different little intro scenarios to get you accustomed with the rules. Again, everything in this booklet is meant to build you up towards the full rule set, which I do appreciate those kinds of things because, you know, for me personally, like I said before, I don't play naval warfare game type things, and so it's good to get a sense of like how do they do movement, because it's much more limited than my Age of Sigmar minis rolling around. With that also, we have a few tokens, and these represent a few things. Everything from, these look like other ships, we have giant icebergs that'll get in the way, as well as the tokens you need to play your game. So this is condition tokens, and there's a numerous amount of conditions and stuff like that in this game. So I'm not going to go through all of them. But here we have our bases. We have a quick set of templates here, which these are like fancy. These feel cool. Okay, I'm on board. Wasn't ready to like a set of measuring things so much, but yeah, everything from blasts. This is your movement gauge here. This one here, they snap together, and this is how you would turn. And basically, they just had the actual measuring device act as a sprue, which is cool. And then we move into what is always the most fun part, and that is the ships. Why? Because it's boat week. So we're going to put the ships off to one side here just for a hot second and see what's at the bottom. And then we'll go through the sprues here in a moment. So this is a jam-packed box, by the way, like straight up. I don't know if you saw how tightly this was packed, but like I feel like it's a good deal. So we have our dice, which basically you'll make decisions based, they kind of like wrap in your decision making as far as how you activate your ships, where they move to, how far they move, things like that. And then we have our attack dice, or maybe not attack dice, I don't know what they call them in the actual rulebook, I'll get that. It does operate with a similar system to Wild West Exodus, and I'll show you what I mean. Essentially, these are 2 decks of cards that you and your opponent can use, and you can manipulate which of these you're using, and some of them are repair cards, some of them give you victory conditions, things like that. So it's largely, it's a combination of dice and cards, but it's not a deck building game, which is important to me because, as I mentioned before on the channel, I'm not a big deck builder kind of guy. And this is the main hull of one of the ships here that we're going to be playing with. And we have our cool little gun turret that's going to snap right in there, as well as a forward turret. Where would this one go? This one would go up here. Yeah, and there's the few other bits on the sprue there that you can kind of swap out the weapons for, which is a great feature that you can really customize these ships to an extent in terms of modeling and that kind of stuff. But I will say, I'm just taking a look at this now. I'm not sure my webcam picks it all up, but there is an incredible amount of detail. You can see the tiny little gun barrels going along the rim here, just above my index finger there. Entire gun rims going on there. Obviously, it's a half a ship because it's meant to be, the other half is in water, so that's why. Yeah, and it's just incredibly well detailed. We've got some cool wooden planks, some vents, I don't know, rivets, down to the rivets is crazy. So we have that, then we have, I believe this is the Prometheus. If I'm not mistaken, I need to look at the actual names of the ships again. And a lot of these parts are resin. However, I have owned numerous products from Warcradle, from Wild West Exodus, different factions, stuff like that. I've never had a problem. Like, say, with Finecast and GW stuff. So, you know, again, that's just one person's testimony. They didn't pay me to say that. But it's the truth for me. I just haven't had a problem with it. And this guy, I like this comparison. These silhouettes together look interesting, where one is like nice and sleek and the other's fat and squat, but it probably has a way more guns on it. Very cool stuff. Yes, I believe this is a Covenant of the Enlightened ship where it has all the crazy generators and doodads and all that kind of stuff all over it. And then we go to the other big ship, and it is a similar variant to this one here. Again, you can see there's some model differences with this one has like big old turbine tanks in the front. This one has more gun emplacements, but I think they make for really cool models, and I'll kind of keep them in their bits together so I don't get completely confused. They're actually way bigger than I thought. Like, I mean, this is the length of my hand. Yeah, that's the smallest one of these. So those are your main, like, big battle cruiser type ships, okay? So let's put those off to the side. Let's talk about what we get on these sprues. Oh, there's a second set of dice hidden in there. Yes, so what I will say is if you have any friend that has a passing interest in this game, this is a wonderful set for the reason that you get 2 basically fleets of ships. You get 2 sets of dice, 2 decks of cards, these are the attack dice versus the action dice. So you just get a lot of stuff, you know, and that, what I mean by a lot of stuff is just things that you would both need. So this is a true 2-player start. It's not like you and your buddy go in and split the difference and then you can maybe have a full set. You know, it's like, no. If it's a 2-player set, 2 players are now in the game, which is awesome. So for these, let's take a look. So these 2 are identical. Are these the tiny little ships? My goodness. So there's a lot of boats here. I'm not going to lie to you. So I think this is one faction. Yes, because this would be the Covenant sprues. I know their ships look a little different. In terms of if you're looking at like typical fantasy stuff, the factions that you get in here, you're looking at, I believe it's not the Imperium, is it? It's the Commonwealth. Yes, I believe it's the Imperium and the Covenant of the Enlightened. Covenant and the Enlightened ships are going to look very like, if you've seen the old school 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Disney, like where it has like the Nautilus and has like these big bubble windows and that kind of stuff, that's going to be their aesthetic, which quite frankly is my fave. And then over here we have more traditional battleships because they were built by what we know in our world as the German Empire, or the Prussian Empire and those kinds of things. That part of the world is the one who's designing all of these things. Now, on these, let's just take a look at this cover, and I'll show you. Boom, here we go. Hunt for Prometheus on the back here. So we saw this is the big long ship that we pulled out first, and with him comes 5 of these smaller battleships below him, as well as 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of the micro little ones. Okay, so we have, what, 10 Rurik class frigates. All right, and 5, I believe this is Kutsov class, what are they, fighter battleships? Kutsov class cruisers, okay. Over here on the far side, we have our Covenant side, however, and that is the 2 large battle class control ships. Those are the Descartes class control ship and the Hypatia class generator ship. The way that those work is very interesting. The generator ship produces power that can shield and kind of empower the weapons for your other boat. So the Covenant of the Enlightened is going to be much more synergy focused. They have a few strong pieces. It kind of roughly works the same way they do in Wild West Exodus, honestly, where they have powerful heroes that make these cheap minions do things better than they should, kind of swing above their weight class. And then you have your more traditional military naval style over here. And I just, yeah, they're wonderful. And the amount of models you get in here is crazy. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 of the Marion class drone frigates. You get 3 Copernicus class heavy cruisers. A lot of the Covenant of the Enlightened stuff, because they're a faction that's based around like great thinkers and inventors throughout history, you'll see this. So yeah, Descartes, Copernicus, they have just references all over the place to these very important thinkers in history. So I think that's super funny. Essentially, yeah, so the main massive ships are all in resin. But I'm okay with that because, quite frankly, because they're not small, they're not fiddly. Like, we looked at this thing earlier. Let me put that out to the side where it's still in hand's reach. This is the thinnest, most fiddly, I guess we could say, of the ships. Now, you should be able to take some of the cannons, because there are some excess ones here, mount them on there, and basically your ship is ready for war. As far as the actual gameplay goes, I'm interested in it because it really is a matter of, honestly, to me, and this is just, my brain kind of trying to connect it and relate it to other things, is I just see a lot of similarity between this and games like X-Wing or Armada, where you're trying to move massive capital ships that just, you have to think about how you actually move these dudes because they're so slow and ponderous. Versus, when you mix that in with these smaller, very, very agile ships that can basically intercept each other and that kind of stuff. So, very interesting setup. I will say, this is a lot of pieces for a few ships. Let's see. We've got, okay, so I mentioned these go on the sides there as their hull. Yeah, we have the main bases for the smaller ships right here. And a whole bunch of weapons, generators, and all kinds of nastiness. My thought is, let's see, I'm just looking at how many guns can you put on each of these suckers, because there's a lot of guns they give you. Like per ship, there's a lot of guns. Let's see. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. So, a little instructional guide, because I was trying to see which guns can you place on each mega ship. Because honestly, let's be real. We're here for the big ships. I mean, that's me. That's what I'm here for. And there are some empty spots. So this is on the Descartes class control ship, which is the big one for the Covenant of the Enlightened, or one of the big ones. And it's interesting because this is the battery-focused one, and you have all different weapons that you can put there. They have a little star, and they basically tell you, all turrets with that little circle, gap on there, are interchangeable. So you really can kit out a ship to be exactly what you need it to be. This is on the Bordino class. This is the long one that was all about the, I believe it's the Imperium. I'm so sorry if I get that wrong. We have the heavy gun battery, a railgun, that just sounds so nasty, and a rocket battery. Pulse emitter, particle beam. Let's see. And it looks like, I think for the sake of keeping the demo pretty simple, I think those really are the main weapons they want you to use, right? Those 3 specifically for the big ship. Now, let's see. Flagship, control ship. Yeah, and so like in Wild West Exodus, they have a wheel, which basically has all your stats, just kind of in a cool thematic way that you can look at them. And honestly, the game is very intuitive because it is based off the same engine, mostly, with the exception of how you move, because obviously you're trying to represent slower, ponderous ships that have to move in the way that ships move. But between that, you have modifiers, and you have what you're looking to roll. You have, let's see, yeah, rather than having like just buckets and buckets of dice, they use quite a few modifiers, which is really, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, if I'm honest with you. Let's see here, we have, oh, there's the rules for the actual Prometheus ship. And let's see, so there is a damaged version and an okay version for, it looks like, each of these. Which is something new, because I did not know that there was damaged versions. I don't think there are in Wild West Exodus. But yeah, so all your rules are there, and then you can reference all of the critical effect dice, which are these guys. Sorry about that. Got that wrong earlier. But yeah, so navigation lock sounds brutal. Basically, turn a 0. As such, models with this marker may not make any turns during their movement step. Oh, that's brutal. So, I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. Like, I'm going to build these guys up and paint them because, if nothing else, it's a great painting break to try and do these things. I've never done naval combat ships like this, but I'm excited to give it a whirl because, quite frankly, I really enjoyed the games that I have played that were close and similar, like X-Wing, that kind of stuff. Also, it kind of gives me vibes of like what's the one? Adeptus. What do they call it? No, I'm gonna hold on a second, I gotta figure this out. Aha, Adeptus Titanicus. It reminds me of that, where you have a few, large pieces that are meant to control the board. And all these smaller things, they're still huge in scale. Like, if you saw this floating past you, you'd be like, what? At the same time, relative to the scale of the game, these little tiny dinghies are very, very small, but they can work together to decisively strike a big ship, or they can just get in the way. And it's all about controlling the field and your opponent's line of fire and things like that. So, to be honest, I'm very excited about it, and I will be showing you guys some finished product shots here pretty soon. So let's go ahead and wrap this up and kind of give some final honest opinions here. Okay, so time for some real talk with this thing. One, I have quite a few thoughts. One is that I'm really impressed with the size of models. They are much bigger than I thought that they would be. And there's more of them. Like, and you see this on the background, but then when you combine it with how many sprues there are and weapon options for each ship and the size of them, I'm like, oh, this is actually super impressive. I will say that much like the starter set for Wild West Exodus, Warcradle understands that a 2-player starter set is intended for 2 different players to start playing the game, which, for comparison's sake, like GW, if it's a starter set, you'll get 2 different factions, but you'll have 1 set of rules and 1 thing of measuring tape and that kind of stuff. This is 2 of everything but the core rulebook, okay? And that core rulebook is free online. So it's like, just go to Kinko's if you really want it and pay $8 and get it printed. But, in terms of like having all your dice and your gubbins and all that kind of stuff like that, and the weapon options that you get per faction, like the amount of weapon options available to the Covenant player and also to the other side, I think is wonderful. Like, in terms of what I want a 2-player starter set to be like for any game in any industry, this is it. One thing I do have to say is, like, there isn't a whole lot of information about the actual ships. Like, by what I mean is, we saw the names, the Descartes class cruiser and all these kinds of cool things. But I kind of wish there was more information of, like, what makes this ship unique. Like, because, if you are a history buff, which I am, every invention that we've created has kind of a story. Why'd we call it that name? Or how was this used? Or how was it deployed? And what was it intended to do versus what it actually tended to be good at? And how did generals use it? So I wish there was a little bit more information about that in the booklet. But to be honest with you, like, if you're just looking for a game and this is the kind of game, again, it's naval combat. It's very control the board, and you know what your opponent has. A lot of open information to you. If you're into that kind of thing, like this is probably one of the best starter set games that I can think of. You get enough models. I believe it's for, this is, if I'm not mistaken, with the way that the points work in the game, this is most of an army. If I checked like the list builder and stuff online, it seems like, you know, it may not be optimal, but you can build a very compelling list from it. So I think that's an incredibly good value. And let's see what else. The fact that it gives you a unique narrative campaign along with your build instructions to kind of walk you through how to play it. And again, the core rules and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I like it. So it's the kind of thing I'm into. I want to try it and give it a whirl, and I'd encourage you to as well. So you can find a link to this as well as my playlist in the description down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed just kind of hanging out and talking about boats and boat talk. And I will catch you in my next video. Happy wargaming.